Um, so change the last 5 to 10 cards in the deck is. I'll start my answer again. What did I write down? Oh, okay. 3 words.
Welcome to Corran's Questions, a show where I assemble a panel of Star Wars CCG experts to answer the big questions about Star Wars CCG. Today's question is about deck building, so I'll introduce the panel with their favorite 61st card, or the card that always doesn't quite make their deck list. First off, we have Scotland Grell's favorite 61st card is Neck and Neck. Bill Taco Bill Kafer likes limited resources. Hayes Hunter goes to bed the night before every event with a 61 card list, and the 61st card is Omnibox and it's worse. Robbie Hendon considers playing a 4th copy of Rebel Leadership or Imperial Command. Anthony Batmouse Howard almost plays Abyss and Chasm in his decks. And as he prepares for his final confrontation this week at Bespin Regionals, Charlie Arlinson is considering whether to play You Do Have Your Moments and Close Call. Today's question: how do you choose the last 5 to 10 cards to play in a deck?
So that kind of touched base on this earlier. We look at the field, we pay attention to what's going on GIMP, we see what people are playing, we have a list of what people are known to play. Like, I'm known to play WAP. Everybody knows I'm probably going to play WAP at any event I show up at. No deck is good against the entire field. You're always going to have some bad matchups, whether they're really, really bad or just, okay, I'm not favored, it's kind of equal, or I'm a little behind based on starting cards, and you do things to shore up those weaknesses. For giant Swiss events, it's really, really hard to accurately predict the meta. For match play or top 8s, where you have a smaller number of players, you can kind of guess more at what people might play and put in cards or pick your deck to go around it. But yeah, usually like every deck has 5 to 10 cards that you can play with. And so, when you go do your net decks, if you're a new player and you're looking at stuff, one of the things you can also look at is this card really all that great after you've played a few games, obviously. But you can look at it and go, okay, is this card really great, or is this one of those 5 to 10 cards that they may have picked for that meta? And you can kind of change things based on that. Because like
10, 50 of your cards are like kind of staples, I guess, and then like 5 to 10 cards, I would say more closer to 10, but are like, should I play Sense? Should I play Quite a Mercenary? But right now, the way the game is, there's a ton of catch-all counter cards. Like Quite a Mercenary is probably the best one. I thinking about it. I mean, like it does so much, and it's recyclable and like stuff like that.
So typically, when I play a deck a few times, a great example would be Throne Room. When I net deck, I'll say, okay, they had these cards in there for a reason. They've been successful with it, so I don't want to just change the cards. But what I'll do is, after I play a deck a few times with maybe, say, a net deck, I'll use their deck, and then after I get a feel for it, I'll want to change some cards. If I'm building a deck from scratch, I typically will put the most important cards in first, and then from there, I'll have maybe room for 1 or 2 cards where I go, you know what? I've never played this card. I really like this card. Let's put it in and see how it works. And, typically the last, 10 cards, right? 8 of them are going to be pretty obvious. Hey, you know what? I've been getting shield busted. Let's play a shield puller. Which one do I want to play? I've had some issues with this card. Let's play this card.
Oh, the last 5 to 10 cards are always, I agonize over them. And it's mainly because I like tech cards. I like trying to have an answer for everything. But I play a lot of Star Wars cards. to get to that point. So by the time I get to my final 5, 10 cards, I've gone through maybe 20 iterations of a deck trying to figure out what are the cards that I need, what are the cards that I'm going to face that I need an answer to, and I'm basically looking for bullets that give me options against everything. I like to walk into a game knowing that I have a game against everything. It may only be a 90-10 game, but you're saying there's a chance.
It goes down to a meta decision, right? If let's say that a certain deck is usually a problem. A great example would be if I'm playing Mind What You've Learned, and typically occupation decks are just going to destroy the deck. So in those situations, you don't even bother. You're not going to win the game. Don't even put cards to help against it because it's essentially an auto loss. Look at some of the other decks and you kind of figure out, okay, what 2 or 3 cards can I put in that'll help maybe against multiple decks? What 2 or 3 cards could I put in that will help against one deck or 2 decks? And then you have that 1 or 2 cards that'll really just help you against that really bad matchup. That's the goal. Because if you put too many cards that are going to help against one specific matchup, it's not good. So you try to make it so a couple of the cards against multiple decks, maybe one card against one deck, and then you have that one card that's like, you know what? Let's just put it in and see what happens.
Anybody that's played Magic will know that of a sideboard, and that's kind of how I treat those 5 to 10 cards as a sideboard, and I pick cards based on what I think I'll need for that event.
It depends on if the meta's established or not. If it's not, I kind of look back on old tournaments, like probably the most recent tournament, what people are playing. Kind of get also, I like to design the decks and see how good I feel they are, and I'm thinking, okay, like the last tournament, I was like, everyone's gonna play your Ender Ops. I kept telling I didn't go, but I kept telling my team, I was like, everyone's gonna play Ender Ops. This is clearly the best deck. Like, how can you beat Ender Ops? And then well, this platform would be good for playing Ender Ops, and then those last 5 to 10 cards, well, I might see a Foresighting, so play something that counters Foresighting, or Kanan Jarrus sometimes is funny because it just cuts Emperor off completely. But I think Emperor usually goes in space in that, so it's like Padme is really good if she's not already in a staple card in your deck.
So I might build decks differently than most people. I don't know how most people build decks, but I will think about every card I might put in a deck and put that into the GEMP file, right? So I wanted a hunt down list recently, and so I took every card I might put in hunt down, and my first draft of the list was like 117 cards. Now, some of that is, what Vader am I going to use? What activation package am I going to use? It's going to come down to, 90-ish cards.
I would say if I'm on Jump and I'm choosing cards, I generally will add a lot of cards into the deck and then just kind of pull away. Just slice away what I don't need, and debate which ones have higher value based on the meta.
But I tend to build backwards, right? So I will look at that pile of, let's call it 80 on average, 80 cards. I will say I absolutely need these cards, and we'll put those off to the side. We'll keep those, and then I'll look at what I might be weak against, or what I might be strong against, right? So the same thing I was talking about with the escape pod, the second escape pod example earlier, where if I'm already strong against something like walkers or Shadow Collective, I can go ahead and cut that second escape pod. Or if I think that I'm not going to get beat down that often, which is always my downfall, and I should always play the second escape pod, but that's a tangent. If I don't think I'm going to get beat down as much, I might toss that second escape pod away, right? So I had another example recently where I wanted to play Shadow Collective, and Shadow Collective I think is weak against Quiet Mind and Colony. And so to do that, I looked at the card Rite of Passage, and I said, can this help me beat Quiet Mind and Colony? Because now I can pull a Lift Tube, I can cancel a path once. And I played 3 games with it, and it did not help. So that got cut pretty quick. So things like that will also help me whittle those last 5 cards down. And then when I go to a tournament, I'll typically be at like 63, 64, and I'll lay it out in front of me either the morning of or the day before, and just look at it and be like, okay, in testing, I have not used this card at all. It's not helping either way, but it can get cut right now. I did this with Revenge of the Sith deck, where we were trying to decide on a space package. One of them was 2 cards and one of them was 3 cards. And so I looked at it and I said, well, I need to cut 1 card, so we're going to go with this space package that's 2 cards rather than 3 cards. So I'm going to make those last few adjustments the day before, most likely, or the morning of sometimes.
Choosing the last 5 or 10 cards in the deck. Obviously, you're not just sitting there with a pile of 50 that you know are good and then a pile of 30 that you know aren't, right? But what you're asking is, how do you get to the final 60? And that is always dependent on the meta. On Team 5, a lot of times what we do is we build collaboratively, right? So we have a general idea of what a net decked QMC looks like, or a net decked, Hitco or whatnot. But really, whenever you construct a deck for a specific event, you're taking into account the meta at the time. So, I don't want to say that like Masterful Move combo in versus regular Masterful Move is a decision you make at the last minute. But I mean, that goes to your point about how those last 5 or 10 cards come to play. So on Team 5, a lot of times what we do is, if we have 2 lists that are the same thing, that are born in the same fire in the same meta, and we are, different, we make a list of literally every difference. So it might be 6 or 12 cards or something, I don't know. But we'll sit down and we'll look and we'll weigh those cards against each other and the merits for each. And usually, I mean, it's rare that we ever end up playing the same deck, like card for card. There's always some amount of personal preference, but the meta truly does drive everything. So it's recognizing, why are you including a card? What are you expecting to face? Does that card slot hold water or not? So the meta is everything, ultimately.
There you have it, folks. Another question asked and answered. How would you have answered this week's question? What's a card that never quite makes your final 60? What questions would you like to hear answered on future episodes? Thanks for watching, and until next time, good luck, have fun, and no reverts.
You're saying there's a chance.